How far can a nation go when foundational truths are rewritten and common sense is sidelined?
You know, we have to stay woke. Like, everybody needs to be woke. And you can talk about if you're the wokest or woker, but just stay more woke than less woke.
In a fiery battle against woke culture, Republicans have taken a stand. Donald Trump criticizes woke policies at the Turning Point Summit, vowing to restore parental rights, protect families, and oppose controversial gender and education laws nationwide.
How does a Jewish person vote for a Democrat? How does a Catholic person vote for a Democrat? With what they're doing to Catholics, I just don't get it. Somebody doesn't like Catholics in that administration, and I don't even know who it is. I don't think it's Biden, because I don't think he has any idea what the hell he's doing. I don't think he has any ideas on any subject. Kamala Harris supports California's outrageous new law trampling on parental rights and allowing minors to change their gender without parental notification or consent. Can you imagine? She's in favor of that, by the way. Or she was. She's probably losing. You know, they're losing as much as they can. But remember, a politician always goes back to where they started. Harris wants to forcibly compel doctors and nurses against their will to give chemical castration drugs to young children. You know that, right? She totally supports that. And she supports the Biden-Harris Title IX policy of forcing every public school in America to let men into women's and girls' locker rooms. Can you imagine? It's like, what are we doing? What? You know, the whole world is laughing at us. You do know that, right? We've gone wacko. As president, I will protect the safety and well-being of America's children. I will defend the values of the American family. And above all, I will restore common sense to Washington.
Ted Cruz fiercely questioned Judge Bendy on supporting legislation compromising women's safety.
Brindisi, should biological men be able to expose themselves to unwilling women, including underage girls?
Senator, that's not a view I share.
So your answer is no?
Senator, I want to be somewhat careful because there are a number of cases that are working.
Is your answer yes? You said that's not a view you share.
It's not.
Then why, just a moment ago, Senator Blackburn was asking you about, as a congressman, you were a congressman from 2019 to 2021.
That's correct.
You were original co-sponsor of and you voted for an Orwellian-named extreme piece of Democrat legislation called the Equality Act. The Equality Act mandated that biological men could play in women's sports, could go to women's bathrooms, could go to women's locker room. The women were not asked. The women were not asked if biological men could go into their locker rooms and disrobe with them. You sponsored it and voted for it. You just said a minute ago you didn't agree with men exposing themselves to unwilling women. If you didn't agree with that, why did you sponsor and vote for legislation that would mandate that women be victimized like that?
Senator, it's been a number of years since I sponsored that legislation, and I do understand that
it's been 4 years.
It's
been 4 years.
I understand, Senator. For the last 2 years, I have been serving.
I'm not asking about the last 2 years. You were a member of Congress. You sponsored it and voted for it. Why did you believe women and girls don't have a right to be free from harassment, to be free from biological men disrobing in front of them without the women or girls having any right to say anything about it or to protest anything about it? Why did you vote for that?
Senator, my recollection of the legislation is that it would prevent discrimination based on gender.
Your recollection is contrary to the explicit text of the statute. Are you fond of ignoring the text of statutes?
Senator, as a sitting judge now, and if I'm fortunate to be confirmed as a district court judge, I will follow statutory.
But you didn't when you were a congressman. You sponsored it. You voted for it. And by the way, to be clear, for some reason under Joe Biden, the state of New York really is getting hammered with judicial nominees. Another judicial nominee for New York was Judge Sarah Netburn, who on a similar issue ruled she had a serial rapist in front of her, a 6'2" man who was a serial rapist who decided to identify as a woman, and Judge Netburn ordered that 6'2" man to be incarcerated with women. Do you think the women in women's prisons have any right, and in particular a right not to be incarcerated, not to have a cellmate who is a 6'2" serial rapist?
Senator, I can assure you, if I become a district court judge, that I will follow the...
My question is, do those women have any rights not to be incarcerated with a 6'2" biologically male serial rapist?
Senator, I think every person has the right to feel safe, and I can tell you...
Then why did you sponsor and vote for legislation that did not protect that right and violated that right?
Senator, that was a time when I was a policymaker, and I do understand that there...
Okay, so those are your policy views. By the way, So do you have any regrets for sponsoring the Equality Act? You said apparently you didn't read the statute. You didn't know what it said. Do you have any regrets for sponsoring legislation that would force girls and women to be subjected to harassment from naked biological men? Do you have any regrets for that?
Senator, during my time being a legislator in the House of Representatives...
That's a yes or no?
I sponsored thousands of pieces of...
Okay, so you have no regrets about that. All right.
Lauren Boebert's bold questioning of Xavier Becerra exposed the absurdities of woke policies.
To start off, as a Secretary of Health and Human Services, can you define for this committee what is a man?
You're looking at one.
Great. So you are a man. I like that. Can you tell me, can men get pregnant?
Unless you know something I don't, I think the answer is pretty obvious.
What is that answer, sir?
I'm asking you, is there something you know that I don't know that would say that a man...
Well, I'm asking what you know. Can men get pregnant?
I'm not aware of it.
Okay. Well, Mr. Secretary, materials coming from your department, you've referred to mothers as birthing persons, replacing that title with...
Are mothers not persons?
Mothers are persons, but it seems to be more inclusive, like you're trying to include another gender in that.
I'm all about inclusion, Congresswoman.
There you go. Just as a mother of 4 boys, I'm not necessarily offended at that. I am a person, but it's just unscientific and absurd.
How so?
To include men in that. If you're going to be inclusive, if you're going to be inclusive in birthing persons, yes.
Well, but it seems to me that you're trying to define...
Let's back up. Reclaiming my time. Can men get pregnant? So then we don't need to include them in this. Mothers are mothers. Moving forward, Mr. Secretary, I want to read for you from a document from your office, the Office of Population Affairs. It says in here, and I quote, "Gender-affirming care encompasses many facets of healthcare needs and support. It has been shown to increase positive outcomes for transgender and non-binary children." Mr. Secretary, what is a transgender child?
A child in America is a child in America, and I hope you and I can love that child just as much as...
Can you define what a transgender child is?
That's a child in America, and it's an American citizen child who needs the services and love just the way any other child does.
Mr. Secretary, do you believe that a child is capable of making life-altering decisions to maim themselves?
So let me just say to you that I don't agree with your premise, but what I will say to you is children know much about themselves, and with the help of their...
Do you believe that children are capable of making the decision to self-regulate?
Again, I don't necessarily accept the premise of your
Mr. Secretary, I mean, you have gender-affirming care for young people, so this is something that you have looked over...
I don't equate gender-affirming care to mutilation. So if that's where you're going, then you're not going to get the answer you want.
Like, share and subscribe for more insightful content like this.